Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Age Gap Love Story. We are Carrie and Alan. We're a married couple with a 32-and-a-half-year age difference, and it's been a while. We went on vacation. We're back now. We also had a busy summer. Yes, we went to Hawaii. This is my t-shirt to prove it. We had a fun time, but we had a busy summer, and we also had a sick pet cat at home, which kind of threw a wrench into a lot of our plans. And so we're back, and we thought today I would interview Alan because I know he's the star of the show. He's the one with the vibrant and fun personality. I thought it would be fun to have him talk a little bit more about his upbringing and some of his life philosophy, because I think he has a lot of wisdom to share, and I would like to be able to share it with all of you. Also, I wanted to mention, do you want to talk about what happened at the Maui airport when we landed in Hawaii?
We were walking along
We just got off the airplane
together, and we were anxious to get to the carousel to get our luggage. So I'm walking along, and I turn around, and Carrie is gone, disappeared into the crowd. I didn't know she got lost. She was kidnapped, ran into the ladies' room for an emergency. I had no idea. And I see her waving back from a group of people. So I went back, and she's standing next to this couple who evidently recognized Carrie.
I think maybe the both of us.
Okay, from our episodes, and they were an age gap couple, and they were thrilled to see us up close in the flesh.
Right, and likewise, we were thrilled to meet viewers of our channel, and so that was really fun. And I think one of the first times that's ever happened to the both of us, and we don't know that many age gap couples in person. We've known a few over the years, but very few. And so it was really fun. And I hope that happens in the future, that we can meet more of you. And we hope sometime to start interviewing other age gap couples. We think that would be a really fun addition to our channel. So it's really just a matter of finding the time, and me taking time away from my other business activities to make time for this. But we love doing it. We hope to do more of it in the future.
Yes, I went out and bought a new pen to do autographs.
So anyways, as I mentioned, I want to talk a little bit, or have Alan talk a little bit about his upbringing. And then I would love if you also would share kind of your life philosophy, because I think for me, as I went through my 20s and my 30s and my 40s, we've been together that long, it was very helpful for me to have someone like Alan who has a very balanced view of life. For me to have him to, I guess, share his wisdom with me, I would say, because when you go through, especially like your 20s and maybe even your 30s, I mean, even now, it's just nice to have somebody who has perspective and who has such a balanced view on life. So I don't know, maybe you want to share, you want to start by sharing some of your kind of overview of how you look about, or how you feel about success and like the meaning of life.
Well, I'll try to keep this brief. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank you for listening. Well, I would have to say that currently my attitude towards life is that many people take it too seriously. Now, everybody's circumstances are different. If people are having a hard time, then of course it's a serious situation for them. But other people that are relatively comfortable or situated in a good environment as to family or employment or finances or their physical location, whatever the case may be, if they are comfortable, I've just found that a lot of people are just upset. They're angry. They are always looking for something else. They always have an issue to address. And my philosophy in summation is that having that attitude, you spend a lot of energy in a negative sense rather than in a positive sense. So if you have a reasonably good life, you have good health, you have a good family, you're reasonably financially secure, again, depending on your personal circumstance, focus on the positive, focus on enjoying life, look for the better aspects of people. I hear the word hate so much, and hate is a very powerful negative word. So I'm not saying go out and kiss everybody that you meet or love thy neighbor or turn thy cheek or whatever. I mean, there's some merit to that, I guess. But I mean, there's a middle ground where you can get along with other people. You can look for the good in people. And bottom line is enjoy life. Look for the good stuff. I remember a story I heard from a guy I used to work with who was older and I thought very smart. He told me a story, fictional, about a ferry going from one area, one coastal area, to another. And this fellow walked up and was chatting with the captain of this ferry. And the captain said, "What was it like where you came from?" And this fellow said, "Oh, the people there were mean." He said, "Everybody was making more money than I was. Nobody really got along." And he said, "What is it like where we're going?" And the captain looked at him and he said, "It's going to be exactly the same." Because the attitude was in this fellow who was unhappy, discontented. So you carry that with you, and you just can't. It's just so much negative energy. So that's, in summation, my attitude in life. As far as my background is concerned,
Well, let me interrupt you for a second because I do remember, especially when I was thinking about career changes and things like that, and I was having kind of like a crisis of, not a crisis of faith, but more like not a midlife crisis. But when I in the past have thought about like what am I doing with my life, you have really helped me take it less seriously and say, like, are you having fun? Are you, interested in what you're doing? And as long as you're not hurting other people, that's kind of like the path that you should follow.
yeah, I know a lot of people don't have the choice as to where or how they want to work. Uh, but even if you don't, you can try to make the best of a bad situation. But a lot of people look at a job and say, "Oh, I started this job. It's horrible. It's not what I expected. I didn't get the right information." Well, it's not like you're committed. They're not going to throw you in jail if you decide to leave that job or look for another. I mean, not the only thing, but one of the most important commitments you make that you really can't back out of, or you shouldn't, is marriage, especially if you have children. But as far as other commitments, I mean, if you buy a house in the wrong place, hopefully you can work your way out of it. If you get a job you don't like, you can maybe look for another one. So try to think of it this way. Uh, if you try to shape your environment rather than letting your environment shape you. And if you can change your environment without causing a lot of injury to yourself, financially or physically or whatever, or others, then do it. Change your environment for the better. And so many people don't see it that way. They think, "Oh, I'm locked in. I've got to stay here. They promised me this, or if I move, it's going to create this problem." Well, try to work around that. Enjoyment of life is the name of the game. When I was growing up, my parents had, of course, everybody their age, which was 1,000 years older than I was at the time. And they always said, "Alan, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. You got to have good health." Not that they lived a healthy lifestyle, because a lot of them were smokers and they didn't eat well or whatever, but they realized that if no matter how much money you had, no matter how successful you were, if you weren't healthy, you weren't going to have a good life. So the bottom line is you've got to take care of yourself, you've got to enjoy life, and then move forward. Anyway,
Yeah.
do you have any more questions?
Well, I think that I'm glad that you brought that up because I do think you have a really good balance of um, enjoying life, but yet you've also been successful. And I think that's also a really important balance to find is so once you get set in a career or a business and you are finding some success, that a lot of people I think take it too far and then lose that balance of of having enjoyment in life as well.
Yeah, focus on your personal best. I've known so many people that are successful, that are wealthy, whether they inherited it or earned it, and they're never satisfied because somebody else is always wealthier and they're always envious. Oh, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. I need to make more money. I need to do this. I need to do that. You don't drive yourself crazy. There's always going to be somebody who's richer. If you're strong, you're exercising, there's always going to be somebody who's stronger, somebody who's smarter, somebody who's better looking. So, again, look for your personal best and enjoy it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've noticed that in you, and it's made me a more balanced person. Is that you always seem to find the good in things. And you said once that your mom said nobody likes a complainer.
Yeah, my mother used to say, don't complain. Nobody wants to hear your complaints.
Yeah.
Not going to make you feel better. Just move on.
Well, sometimes you think it makes you feel better, but then actually it's just kind of like you're going down further and further.
It makes you feel worse. You talk
Yeah.
yourself into a downward
Yeah,
spiral.
exactly. Whereas you always seem to look on the bright side, and I admire that about you. And also, that whole thing about if you can't, um, or like the helping hand is at the end of your own arm.
Yeah, that was a lesson I taught my daughters. I must have told them that a million times when they complained about, I need somebody to help me do this. I mean, I can't do that. I'd always say, the helping hand you're looking for is at the end of your arm. Because we've all had troubles in life. I've had them, financial issues that have come up and things that you think are insurmountable, and oh, somebody help me, and, give me a break. The only person you can really rely on is yourself. And that helping hand you're looking for is right here. You just got to put it to work.
Yeah, and I think that you can take that in so many different ways, but it is really true because I do think there's a lot of like that's the way I grew up a totally different way where it was more like a victim attitude, and as opposed to a um like I can do this, I can make the change. And so I mean, like I did not, I felt like I tried not to have that victim attitude. Like I don't think that was inherent in my personality, but that's what I saw around me. And then when I with my parents and my family, but then with you it was more like the complete opposite. Like I'm going to make the change. I'm going to go out and do this. And that's been really positive influence on me. So I just wanted to share that with people because yeah, like it, and it could be as minuscule as you're uncomfortable in the way you're sitting in your chair, so reorient yourself. Or just you're in a work environment where you're really unhappy because your coworker is talks too loudly. Well, there are things that you can do. I think that's the point. um
Yeah. Boils down to either your environment shapes you or you shape your environment.
Yeah, yeah. But see, a lot of us weren't taught that. And so it just, I think by talking about it, then hopefully we can inspire other people. Um, so maybe we should talk a little bit about your parents because they were such a big influence on your life. And also, recently, Alan's family came across some old slides from with Alan's parents, and Alan in his college and 20s and his like in his 20s. So I'm going to share some of those photos. I'll share a couple on the screen, and then I will share some in our private Facebook group. So if you're not joined, please join. I will put the link in the description. It is a private group just for people in age gap relationships, and you have to answer the questions to join. You have to agree to the group rules. Otherwise, I can't let you in.
So if you're not in an age gap relationship, just run out and grab somebody. Some senior. You go to a senior's home and pick somebody up. Hey.
Okay, so just for reference, to share some visuals of how adorable your parents were, but maybe you could talk about like how it was growing up, and I don't know your parents' attitudes and and their jobs and stuff?
Well, my parents, for most of their lives, they were old when they had me. I was the second of two children. My older brother was 7 years older. So I may have been a love child. I don't know, a little accident there. But they were married during the Depression in the 1930s, which is a rough time. And they both worked. My mother sold shoes at a department store. My dad sold cars. And later on, my dad opened a business. He had an older brother who had a liquor store, and he worked for him for a while. And then he opened his own liquor store. And as the years went by, he did reasonably well and bought a building that had an additional store next to it. It was like a duplex, and he would rent that out. When that became vacant, my mother always wanted a toy store, and it was about the same time my brother got married and didn't have a job. And so they put him to work in the toy store with my mother. And so they had those two businesses, and I worked in the liquor store from a very early age. It was legal. I mean, I waited on customers, I did deliveries and stuff, and I actually started working when I was like 12 years old. And my dad taught me how to pay bills, how to make bank deposits, how to deal with people, the public, customers, and how to handle the inventory. So I learned a lot business-wise during that period. And then I also worked later in the toy store with my mother and brother. So I learned a lot from them as far as dealing with people and business in general. And they were very stable, very hardworking people. And later my dad sold the business, and they had a fair number of years in a good retirement environment. So that was that. My dad sent me to college. I was the first one in my family, the only one in my immediate family to go to college. Initially, I thought I would take over my dad's liquor store and go to community college to maybe learn some additional business things. Well, in that period after I graduated high school, not having taken any college prep courses, I realized it was boring to work full time in retail, standing behind a counter. So I went back to community college while I still worked for my dad part time and took all of the classes I had to take for college prep. And I finally got into a university on probation because I was not a good student. And I eventually graduated. My dad used to say, "We're going to have to burn that school down to get you out." So anyway, I finally graduated. And then because it was during the Vietnam War, I enlisted in the reserves so I could schedule the time I had to actually serve on active duty, which I did on a hospital ship in Vietnam, which was a very, very stressful and um, broadening experience for many reasons. So before I went in active duty, because I was misinformed about when my ship would actually leave San Francisco and go across the Pacific, I was married. And then it turned out that much faster we were deployed. And so I only had a very short time to be with my new wife, and my wife was pregnant at that time, and I was in Vietnam when my daughter was born, first daughter. So anyway, when I got back, I went to work right away because I had a family to support.
And how old were you at this time? Like
Let's see,
24?
I went on active duty at 23, came out at like 24 and a half, 25. Went immediately to work as a stockbroker for Merrill Lynch, went to a bank, became a trust investment officer. Then I worked in another department of the bank, in the commercial part of the bank, in the investment banking area. And then in 1980, I formed my own company, which I sold to a much larger company in 1998, and worked for them for a few years.
And that was basically when we met.
That it was a very stressful time because the sale of my company was really difficult, very arduous because of difficulties with employees
And you were going through your divorce.
yes, and property settlement issues and whatever, which is typical, I think. And Carrie and I were together for several years. She was a pillar of strength, and we were married after, I think, being together, being almost inseparable for 4 or 5 years. And we got married about 23 years ago. So intermittently, I've been retired, in and out of retirement. I've had a few other work opportunities, and I finally retired at the age of 77 in 1998.
There were 2019.
No,
At 2018.
2019,
Okay.
2019.
Yeah, so a few things. So
At my age, you kind of lose track of the centuries, you
okay.
know.
Well, a few things. We talked about this before, the fact that when Alan and I met, he was essentially starting a new chapter in his life. And I think that was healthy for us as an age gap couple because it more replicated where if I had been dating somebody my age, that person likely would have been, at the start of their career. And like Alan was in an apartment instead of his family home. So then when we decided to get married, then we bought a home together. And so in a way, it made it seem less of like, oh, I was, moving into his home or things like that. And I know obviously like that can't be the same for everybody, but it made it feel less like I was like integrating into his life, more like we were starting a new life together, which I think was really neat looking back on it. And then another thing, I never got to meet Alan's parents because they had passed before I met Alan. But from what I can tell, Alan is a chip off the old block, meaning he's just like his dad. So his dad had an amazing sense of humor and also had kind of like that youthfulness. Was he the baby in his family too?
Yes, he came from a very large family.
Yeah.
He was born, I think, around 1906, and as Carrie said, he was the baby of his family.
And there was something about the baby, because Alan's the baby in his family too. So I think maybe your dad was a little, I don't know if he was spoiled, but Alan, I think, was a little bit spoiled. And I feel like there's just something about kind of having being more lighthearted. I think there is some science behind, I guess, I can't remember what they call it, like sibling or child, whatever. I can't remember what they call it, but where you are in your family, it kind of can influence your personality. But there does seem to be a humor genetic trait in Alan's family because his dad had it, Alan has it, and his grandson has it as well, who is also the baby.
Who's the baby?
Your grandson, Leo.
Leo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really neat. And Alan's dad was an early adopter of film and I guess what we would call video now. And so I've been able to see a lot of family videos, even when Alan was little, like 3, which is so neat to see. It really just adds so much life to memories, or and I mean I wasn't there, but it makes me feel as if I knew his parents. And I was lucky enough to see Alan's family home before the family sold it, but that's neat. And then we still have the video on a DVD now, so that's pretty cool.
He had an 8-millimeter film camera that you would wind. And then he also bought a Polaroid camera where you take a picture and you pull it out, and it would take like 60 seconds and it would develop itself, which at the time was very innovative. So he loves stuff like that.
But what about this thing?
No, there was no this thing.
Oh.
It was a camera, and you would wind it to move the film as it was being exposed.
Oh.
And it would
for video?
No.
Well, I'm talking about for video.
I know that was film, but then my brother took those old films and converted them to a video, to a DVD.
Right, but your dad took video footage of you, like you on the horse at Griffith Park.
No, honey, that was from his camera. And then my brother took the film to a firm that converts old films into digital format, which was a DVD.
No, I understand, but it wasn't just still frames; it was actual moving footage.
Yes, and that's what that 8-millimeter camera does.
Okay.
Because at that point in time, when I was that young, there was no such thing as video other than film.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Anyway, I know it's a little confusing because there's a lot of stuff mixed up here. But anyway, my dad was born around the turn of the century, and he used to tell stories about how he quit school in the 6th grade. My mother did graduate high school, but my dad went just to the 6th grade because she had a teacher in the 6th grade who evidently was very unpleasant. And he was a jokester and he was always getting into trouble. And he said one time she put him in the knee hole under her desk and made him stay there. And he developed claustrophobia, I think, because of it. And then on another occasion, she locked him into the cloak room. And this was on the East Coast where kids had to wear heavy clothes in the winter and they would hang him up in the cloakroom. She locked him in the cloakroom, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So he climbed through a small window in the cloakroom and shimmied down a pipe on the outside of the school, never went back to school.
Yeah. And I think probably Alan had some undiagnosed ADHD and maybe even dyslexia. So who knows, maybe your dad had that too. But I think people would assume that Alan was a wonderful student and very studious because he went into finance and things like that. And that is not the case at all. He still, in some ways, is a little bit like ADD, and um, I don't know about dyslexia, but he's not a good student and he's not very studious. But he's smart and he's well informed. In fact, one thing I've always admired about you is he has an amazing memory for details and names and events and history. I think because you read periodicals, he reads the
And your name
newspaper.
again is?
Uh, but that's probably a misconception. People think that you're like kind of like a professor type, and he's not. He's
No.
more goofy and silly,
Yeah.
but he's also very well informed.
Well, I have authored 2 books and co-authored 5 others on finance. So I was able to, shall we say, power through or struggle through. But I can't read. I fall asleep if I read unless it's periodical or stuff online. But
Something that's like quick and easy to read.
yeah. So, I mean, I understand kids that don't do well in school, and yet they can still achieve.
Yeah, and now there's a lot more resources to help if you do and did indeed have a learning disability, or like I feel like I went through kind of like the classic public school education system, and I didn't learn that much until I got into like university level where I was able to pick my interests, and then I ended up going to a university where the motto is learn by doing, and that was very significant for me and really was the first time that I felt like I was learning truly. So it took a long time, but I finally found what works for me. So, uh,
I hope this is not too much information.
well, we can wrap it up soon, but I do think it's kind of fun to learn a little bit more about you, and just think because again, like people might have misconceptions about just I don't know what kind of person you are and where you came from and stuff like that. Um, any other life lessons at 83 that you want to share? I think that the message about trying not to use the word hate, I think is very relevant to today. I find myself having very strong opinions about things, and so I try to be more balanced, or at least not have the negativity so much. It's very, very challenging.
You know, as I mentioned earlier, it's negative energy when you could be doing something positive with your energy. And I
Yeah,
see so many people get upset about things in the news or
yeah. But
minor.
there's things to be upset about.
Yes, there are. And I understand that. But you can be unhappy about something or dissatisfied with it. But as far as getting really bitter and worked up about it, I mean, I see people get so angry and so frustrated, especially if it's something you can't
Yeah,
change. I mean, why get worked up about it? I mean, a lot of things are going to happen that you have no control over, and complaining about them is not going to change it. All it's going to do is make you unhappy.
yeah.
So, move on.
That's true. Or try to try to put that energy into something productive, I guess.
Make your own life better.
Yeah, right. So that's that's kind of like that's been a theme, I think, for a lot of our relationship is Alan kind of has more of a balanced view where I tend to get worked up about things. So it's a good reminder.
We have a nice balance.
Yeah, yeah. But on the other hand, I think maybe I help keep things.
Carrie's very organized, very thoughtful, very planning. And so she helps remind me of the realities of things we need to get done. Like when we plan, for example, we plan a vacation. Carrie's got all the things that we need to get done nailed. And if it were up to me, although I consider myself organized, I wouldn't nearly cover all the bases that Carrie does.
Mm.
So again, it's a nice balance.
That's true. And then maybe you wouldn't plan as many activities and then you lose the opportunity.
Bingo.
Yeah. So, anyways, if you have specific questions for Alan, please leave them in the comments.
Yes, or send me a personal note attached to a $100 bill.
Yes,
Thank
Alan
you.
would love that.
Thank you very much.
And as I mentioned, I'll put the link to the Facebook group. If you're in an age gap relationship, please join, because that is, for me, that's the place where we really can connect with each other. And it's a private group, so it's a place where people, and you can post anonymously too. You can't join anonymously, but then you can post things if you have like really sensitive questions. And then other members in the group, I think we're up to 700 members now. People usually leave very thoughtful advice. And I think the thing that I love the most about our community is how diverse it is. We have international members, people from all ethnicities, people from all age groups, people from all, I mean, I don't know everybody's background.
Persuasions.
Yeah, so it's just fantastic, because in my regular life, I'm in like the nutrition world, which tends to be less diverse. And so I love having the diversity that we do. So that wraps it up for today. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.
Bye.